that both the SEC and the Big Ten have decided to take a pause on to say, like, do we want to be any bigger? And if so, how much more?
Yeah.
And so, if you think, okay, maybe they would say 18, maybe you'd say 20, who would you take next? And if you think about the Big Ten standpoint, we're hearing Florida State, Miami. We've heard Duke, North Carolina, Virginia. We've heard Oregon, Washington, Stanford, Cal. I'll tell you on that list, Oregon to me would be last. The Big Ten, everything about the Big Ten, they want a couple things. They want markets, they want academics, they want research. Oregon is of that list, Oregon is the bottom on all of those. Oregon is the only major school in the country, because Alabama hides its money. Oregon is the only major school in the country to spend more on sports than on research. Aside from and by major, I mean I'm not counting the little private schools. The little private schools who don't do any research, that's another story. But of the actual big research schools, and of the AAU schools, Oregon is the only one that actually spends more money on sports than research. That is not like a good Big Ten statistic. Oregon's in not a very good market. Their uniforms cause cirrhosis of the eye, so you have to watch out for that.
You can't put Oregon and Penn State on the same field. Looking at 1920s football versus it just wouldn't work.
It would be really painful. And I mean, I have lots of great friends at Oregon. I love Oregon. There's nothing cooler than Shout. But the thing about the Big Ten is, if the Big Ten is looking at it and they're looking at, see, the thing is and some of you guys who work in sales know this. You talk about qualifying the sale, right? And then targeting who you want to go after, sort of how marketing sales work. So the thing of it is if you're going to qualify teams and schools, would Oregon be qualified for the Big Ten? Absolutely. Oregon's an AAU member. It's a state flagship institution. It's a great school, has some tradition, amazing fans, amazing facilities, all this. But so you say, okay, the thing about the Big Ten is when you go to qualify teams for the Big Ten, there's about 15 teams that you would qualify. And Oregon is maybe number 9, number 8 on that list. And so you say, okay, how many would the Big Ten want to add? And would they want to add enough that you're going far enough down that list? And that, that's a question. By the way, right now, the number of how many the Big Ten wants to add is 0. And also, I mean, the West Coast, USC and UCLA have never liked Oregon. In fact, if USC and UCLA historically had their way, Oregon would have been left to die in the woods and be in the Mountain West today. But and UCLA wanted their vote back, and there's all kinds of trouble with that.
Okay, we're at 16 teams now. So if we go to 20 teams, what does the pie look like? I mean, there's a number where you're going to start losing money, and you guys know Ohio State already said, we don't want to add no more. We're not going to lose any money. And Iowa come out and said, yeah, we're not voting for anybody else if it's going to cost us money. This is the share we got. We're not going back.
365 Sports had someone on saying the offers for the Pac-12 have been between 22 and 25 million per team. Sorry if already discussed.
Yeah, we talked about that. Shirley, soon we talked about that a little bit. We're not sure what it is. We're really sure that whoever, as Brett Yormark calls Dennis Dodd on a daily basis to type things for him, that they don't know what it is. But we don't know what it is either. We're not really that stressed out about it because whatever it is, it's not enough for teams to move. And for example, every single of the Pac-12 CEOs has literally signed on the line that they are not moving. They put out their little message. The athletic directors of the schools that the fan fiction people think might be interested have every single one of them shut it down. We've had leaked booster emails shutting it down. I mean, nobody's moving. It's a cute fan fiction idea, but it's just not happening. And again, like I said, you hear this ridiculousness in these little fan fiction forums where they talk about Oregon and Washington, and I joke, as soon as you say the O word to the Big Ten, that's when you know that literally you might as well be talking about Martians, because Oregon's not going to the Big Ten.
No.
So So as soon as people talk about that, like, okay, well then that's just not happening. So we can move on. I mean, again, it's, and people have told me, they were like, oh no, it's not lies, it's fan fiction. And I'm like, okay, well.
Well, and Tony, remind me again, in the last, through all the realignments, 47 teams have switched conferences. Out of the 47, how many went to a lower academic conference?
None.
None.
No university. And I mean, and I've gotten some like just raging nitwits like that hit me up about this, like trying to argue about like the 3.5 weeks when Texas A&M did this and when and just stupidness. Yeah, but of the 5 power conferences since 1930, there have been almost 50 realignment moves. A couple went independent, a couple regretted going independent, but no one has ever directly downgraded into an academically less prestigious conference. It's no, because again, remember guys, these aren't USFL teams, they're universities.
Right.
And because they're universities, no one has ever downgraded to an less academically prestigious conference. It hasn't happened in the power conferences anyway.
Right. And has anybody heard from Swanee ever? I know they didn't have the forward pass when they left the SEC, but has anybody reached out to them since they left?
There's a couple interesting ones. And so, although somebody called me out on the one that's a little bit debatable. There's 2 that are a little debatable. One particularly, which was which was not a move, but a declined move, which was that Northwestern did turn down actually Army and Navy did too. Northwestern, Army, and Navy turned down the Ivy League in 1982. But they did. There was no downgrade or up, because it wasn't that they left and came back. They did decline the opportunity to upgrade, but no one has ever downgraded. Again, Mark, when we looked at the numbers, we thought that Washington. Washington is a gigantic academic powerhouse. Washington is a Big Ten school. Washington has the loudest crowd, or the second loudest crowd, depending on your argument, whatever. I will call it the loudest crowd in the country. They have that like spectacular it's a giant Gothic campus, completely filled with like blossoming cherry trees. It's like the most incredible place in the world. Phenomenal school, big health system. Everything about Washington is out of this world. It is kind of up there. Like Seattle's far from San Francisco. Used to be a 24-hour train ride. So it's just, who knows exactly, but you could definitely see Washington before Oregon. If I were handicapping like who the Big Ten would steal, I would think Stanford, Washington, or Stanford, Cal. I mean, the other thing, by the way, is Cal is the key. People don't understand. There's in higher education, the pause in football, in higher education, there are a few institutions that just are the boss in charge, and people follow what they do and what they say. And they're kind of regional, and people can kind of argue with me and add 1 or 2. Go for it if you think you want to add 1 or 2. But it's Harvard and Yale in the Northeast. It's Michigan and Ohio State in the Midwest. It's Cal and Stanford on the West Coast. I hate to admit. It's Texas down there, and I don't know, probably Georgia and Florida in the Southeast. And again, if you actually are around higher education, like whether it's COVID, whether it's, how we handle, emergencies or, whatever, like people, how they handle Greek life issues. That's what those schools do, is what everybody else does too. And so that's why Cal is like a hapless joke with their god-awful basketball and football team. But like everybody knows, you salute the University of California. Like you do what they say. And so people that think that Oregon matters and Cal doesn't are absolutely wrong, because this is higher education.
Let's catch a.
By the way, Oregon does about $120 million or whatever of research. The University of California does about $16 billion.